All right, hello and welcome to the Big Money Stylist podcast. We always have like so many inappropriate things that we say that we edit out. Like honestly, I'm like, should we edit them out? Sometimes we keep them in, but that one we're gonna have to edit out. So, anyways, we're excited to be here. This is Katie. She is my director of operations. She's been on a few podcasts, and I'm just like rotating with everybody on the team. You know, I'm like, who wants to do a podcast today? And Katie was like, me.
I was like, I washed my hair.
I know.
I styled it, and I'm wearing a dress.
I literally was like, oh, you look like you got ready. I'm like, I just came straight from a workout, and I was like, she's like, oh, you have water in your hair. I was like, no, that's sweat.
And then I was like, here's a hat.
Yeah. And then I put lip gloss on, and I feel better about my life. So
yeah. Okay, but I saw this thing the other day that was like, if you have hair, like if your hair looks amazing, you don't need anything else. Like you don't need makeup, you don't need clothes. I agree too.
And you know what else I noticed too is like sometimes I feel like if my hair's done, like I don't want to wear that much makeup. Like it's almost like too much.
Yeah. It's like how if you have like, leg, then you can't have
boobs.
Yeah.
You got to pick. You got to keep it classy. You can't be like, you can't have like too much legs and then too much boobs. And then same thing, like you have to be careful. Like you can't have like all this hair extensions and really long nails and then like tons of makeup and
like today I have boobs, so I have sleeves.
Oh yeah. I'm a good fan of like a leg. Yeah, you got to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
So anyways, today I'm going with sweaty hair and a hat.
And today I'm going with Beauty Queen Katie.
I like it. Did you use the 3-barrel?
I did.
Oh, I like it.
I do too. Do you want to know why?
Why? Well,
okay.
Yeah.
I hate washing my hair, as do most women and most MBR clients.
Okay.
I have found that when I use the 3-barrel, it stays
longer than a curl, huh? Yeah.
It's so weird.
I agree.
Because it's almost like the way my natural hair like swells and stuff matches it.
Okay, so I'll tell you why I love the 3-barrel. Like days like today where my curls are all kind of wonky and I'm like, I don't want to go back and recurl every single strand. I just take the 3-barrel and do like a few and it's just like this cute, messy, beachy wavy. Like so I'm pitching right out of the gate, you guys, if you're listening to this.
I have a question about this though, and this is relevant because you know, people who use the 3-barrel, they want to know this because I want to know. Okay. So when you're doing that, where you're going in and just like, you know, doing your few little pieces, do you run your hands through it right away? Do you use a lower heat? Because sometimes when I do that, to be perfectly honest, I end up where you can tell. It's like she just did, you know, boop,
one piece.
Boop, and then it looks weird. So do you use a lower heat? Do you run your hands through it? Do you do anything
I take
different?
it on an angle. So like instead of like going in it, like if you do like the 3-barrel and you like crimp it in, it looks super 90s, which is kind of back. But if I just want like a diffused look, like kind of beachy, I take it at an angle and I actually put a little bit of hairspray in there and then it will hold, but it's not so like waved perfectly. It's like a soft.
That was great. Hot tip.
You know, go watch on my Instagram at Danielle K. White. I have several 3-barrel videos. They're great.
I'm also the model of one of the 3-barrel promotional videos. So is it enough that I just know how to wear it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That works.
What is our topic today?
Our topic today, I know we got a little sidetracked, but in this podcast, like I feel like I do more like mindset and like we talk about business. I own a hair extension company called Natural Beaded Rose, and we have a academy called DKW Styling Academy, and we teach business marketing and sales. But honestly, like you can't give anybody a tactic if you don't kind of get them to shift their mindset, right?
Oh, 100%.
So like today, it's like and we always say this, I'm like, I can give you a tool. Like people want like a checklist or a task list or whatever it is. I'm like, and in this last class that I was in for a second, I was like, your problem is not that your camera doesn't work. Your problem is that you're not committing. Mm-hmm. Like commit. Yeah. And so that's kind of like the topic that I wanted to talk about today is because a lot of times, you know, we want to invest in a trainer or at least for me, like I have a trainer I pay, but I'm like, if I'm going to pay a trainer, like I'm going to be honest with her. Otherwise, I'm just lying to myself. Oh, yeah. I'm going to tell her what I'm eating. I'm going to tell her what I'm doing. I'm going to tell her when I fucked up because then she can know how to course correct and hold me accountable. If I lie to her and I'm like, yeah, I ate perfect last night. I didn't have that big bowl of ice cream. And what are you talking about? What do you mean you can tell my workout is shitty? It's not because of the hamburger and the tequila I had. No, that's not why. Like she knows. She's not dumb. She can look at me and watch me in my workouts and be like, you're full of shit. And so then she can't even coach me because I'm lying to my coach.
And I don't know, what keeps coming up for me too is like, if you can't commit to to what you say you want to do for yourself, like, okay, I work out Monday through Friday. Right. And I do it in my garage. I'm literally in my pajamas. I don't even have shoes on. Like nobody wants to come work out with me. Trust me. I don't want you to come. You're not invited. But that is a commitment that I make to myself. It does not mean that every day I want to do it. And most days I wake up and I'm like, oh, could I just like rearrange the garage a little bit and pretend like I'm working out but not really do anything?
But then you're just going through the motion without an intentional result.
And yes, and I'm like telling myself that I don't even care enough about myself to commit to the things I say I want to do for me.
Right.
So if I can't even commit to myself, how can I commit to my clients? How can I commit to my coworkers? How can I commit to my husband or my kids if I don't even respect my own commitments enough?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, if you don't commit, you're not really essentially respecting yourself.
You're not.
You're not. And it's
You're just being a victim.
It's crazy too though, because I feel like I think that's funny. You're like, I could go out in my garage. It's like the difference of like, yeah, I could go work out and not sweat and just like have a trainer and not like be intentional about it. Or like I'm already putting in the time. So why wouldn't I commit? And I think it really comes down to, we think if we commit, we hold ourselves to these unrealistic expectations. I made a post the other day and I was like, there's no such thing as perfection, but there's a lot of value in progress. And so we have this idea in our mind that like, well, if I commit and I go all in, then my standard is here and I have to be perfect. But in reality, watching yourself progress is truly how you have success. That rhymed.
And having realistic commitments and realistic expectations. Like I don't expect yourself to always have the perfect workout, or don't expect yourself to, lose 5 pounds after one workout. That's not the way that it works.
Well, it's crazy too, though. Yeah, I think that there's a cycle there too, where it's like we want we're a society of immediate gratification. So we can say like, oh my God, I don't know why I keep taking this back to fitness and workout, but like it truly is like, it's like if you diet 4 days out of the week, you're like, I was so good Monday through Friday, but then I ate like shit all weekend. You're like, but if your goal is to eat wheat, or if your goal is to lose weight, that doesn't work. That might help maintain you, but if you're actually trying to lose, you literally were only good 60% of the week, and that's not going to give you the end result that you want. So you put in this time making it really hard for yourself, then you fuck it up over the weekend, and then you are curious why you didn't have results. And it's because you didn't commit to the 7 days, you only committed to the 4 days.
Yeah. And this is just because we're talking about working out. A few months ago, it was probably like 2 months ago, I was working out in my garage and my Pilates reformer ate my foot.
Oh, it really did.
And I like literally was I was stuck in the reformer screaming for help. And I honestly was so scared that I broke my ankle or my foot, and I was like terrified that had happened. And I didn't. Thank God. It's just a really bad bone bruise.
It was bad.
It was so gross. And it actually is still a little bit bruised, but that's a whole nother story. But the next day, I still went out in my garage and worked out. And I didn't do anything that had to do with that leg at all. I don't think I did anything with that leg for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But it was the point of, I started working out Monday through Friday. I made that commitment because I want to feel strong.
Yeah.
I am a mother of 2. I want to feel strong in my body. I don't want to have aches and pains every day. And so working out consistently at least 5 days a week is one way that I do that. And honestly, I was more scared of breaking my streak than I was of not having a super productive workout or, accidentally bumping my bruise. Like I was like, no, I'm committed to this. And if I stop, it's going to be so much easier to not go back to that. And that is not the person I want to be. I wasn't happy that way, and I'm not going back there.
But how crazy is it though? Like that's how it works in life. If you break that streak, if you lose that momentum, you almost like you kind of degress, and then you're like, yeah, and then you like want the high again. So then you come up, and then you like self-sabotage, and so you're never you're on this roller coaster of progression that's not actually building you up. Like you're flatlining, but you're roller coaster flatlining, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does.
And I find that a lot of times we almost do that to ourselves, in the sense that like people always ask like, what's my biggest secret to success with anything? And I'm like, consistency. And I said, and you know what? The days that I like feel like shit, those are the days I'm like, you get your ass out of bed and you work out, or you set yourself up to have a successful day. Like you don't have like it, because if I spiral, then it's like all of a sudden it's like Friday sucks, Saturday sucks, Sunday sucks, then Monday rolls around. I'm like, oh, I don't want to, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's a downward spiral. So like on the days that I feel the shittiest are the days that I'm like, nope, you just need to get up. You need to find purpose. You need to have like, you need to just get going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you need to do your thing.
You need to do your thing, because otherwise you get in this funk. And the same goes like for, students inside the academy, if they have questions on like, even like doing their work, right? They're like, hey, I'm not getting the result that I want. Like, I feel like they're doing the work, but they're not like giving themselves self-feedback. in order to like do the work intentionally. And I stand behind this. I think it's because we think it's not even about unrealistic expectations. I just keep going back to the thought that people are, it's like fear of failure, but the sense of like progress is never failure, honestly. Like it isn't. And so it's like, yeah, you're not going to be like, I remember for me, the reason I keep taking it back to my fitness is because I just committed to do another competition with my trainer in December.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And I'm like,
don't get pregnant this time.
I can't. My
do
husband
not get
got
pregnant.
snipped. But I wasn't going to do one. I was kind of like, I'm over it. And then I was like, you know what? I at one point was like, I'm going to get my pro card, which that's extremely hard. Like you have to, like, that's like if once you've gotten your pro card, you're like, I did it. I made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my trainer has a pro card. And I was like, I'm going to get my pro card. And I realized like, it's like a full-time job. Like it really is. Like it's a lot of work and it's a lot of mental, like it consumes a lot of your mental capacity. And like, I was like, I kind of got to this place where I was like, if I'm not going to become pro, I'm not going to do it anymore. And then I was like, you know what? I've had 4 babies and I feel like I hold myself to a high standard when it comes to that. And I'm like, and I'm proud of the work that I put in. So it's like, I wanted to commit to one last show because this is like my final hurrah after having baby Charlie.
Aww.
So I was like, okay, I'm not doing it with the intention that I want to go pro. I'm doing it with the intention of like, I need to commit to myself because my goal is not to be perfect and become a pro, right? And there was this time where I was like, I was scared to even commit to doing that because my expectations were to become a pro. And then it sounds crazy, but I kind of lowered my expectations because I'm like, I don't have the time nor am I willing to put in that kind of time to become a pro. It's not that I don't believe I can, but I kind of lowered my expectation because I know the progress that I see in myself is a win.
And you're just doing it.
Yeah, it's like I committed and it's like, and I see progress and I'm like, that is a win. And yeah, if I wanted to put more time into this specific area of my life, I believe at some point I probably could go pro. But right now I'm like, it's not in my cards. I have a full-time business. I have 4 kids. Like this is a hobby on the weekend.
And is that something that you really want?
I don't. And that's where I came to. I was like, I don't want to put on that kind of size and that kind of muscle. And I don't care about my pro card. What I really like is setting a goal, committing and achieving that and seeing progress in myself.
Your commitment is to growth.
Yes, exactly. So I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm at that point where I'm like, okay, one more time. I'm going to do this not to become pro, but to see myself grow. And I feel like when you grow, you help other people grow too.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? Like people are like inspired by growth. They're like, they don't care how far you've made it. They don't even care if you like are a professional, whatever. Like people just love to see other people grow.
Yeah, it's like that saying, when you teach, you learn. Like when you're it's almost infectious. Okay, have you seen it's not new anymore, but the newer Top Gun movie?
Yeah.
Okay, so and this just keeps coming to me. There's that line in the movie. It's like, don't think, just do, or don't think, just go. I forget what it is, but it just keeps coming to me because I'm like, so oftentimes we see artists inside of our academy or just in general that are so stuck in their head and they're overanalyzing. What am I going to do? Well, what if I get rid of doing men's cuts and then, I don't have any clients at all anymore, and then, my house goes into foreclosure and my kids are sent to Child Protective Services.
It's like always the worst case scenario.
You're like, stop thinking.
Whoa.
And just do.
Yeah.
Just do the one thing that you can do right now, which is, hey, post on social media. Do your daily 4. Like, let people know that you exist and what services you offer. What one thing can you do right now to stop thinking?
Right. And I think it's funny, too, because we'll even tell students, like, they're like, hey, I want more leads. And we'll say something like, well, how's your daily 4? Daily 4 is just, like, consistently communicating a message through social media, like, through audio, text, video, like, they're like, I find the biggest thing that artists or people in general, they're like, well, I don't want to be annoying. You're like, you're your biggest fan, and any stalkers are going to stalk you, they're going to stalk you, and that doesn't, who cares? If it pays the bills, like, who cares? You just keep being annoying and putting yourself out there and pushing out content.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you have to kind of, like, get out of your own way and just go.
Also, who really thinks you're annoying? Like, is that just a story in your head?
I mean, there's some people that I'm like, God, there's so many fucking posts. But I don't care. I don't unfollow them. I'm just like, good for you. You're committed. Like, you're committed, right? And so it just comes to this. When I'm trying to give somebody feedback and they give me a million excuses to why it's not working, I'm like, I need you to be receptive to my feedback, or you're just looking for me to give you validation, and that's not going to help you grow. So if you truly want to grow, then you have to be receptive to hearing my feedback, and don't give me a line of why you can't make it possible. Like, if you commit, you can make anything possible. I genuinely believe that.
It's so true. It's just like your kids. When you tell them something and then they talk and you're like, stop talking and just listen. Because the fact that you start talking the second I stop tells me that you're not actually listening. You're hearing the words, but you're not listening to the words that I'm saying. And if, I don't know, to me, I just feel like if you're not going to listen to, if you're asking for feedback and you're not going to actually listen to it, then you are choosing to live in a land of being a victim.
Right.
And you put yourself there.
Right. And it's, you almost have to kind of like let it sink in, because it's like somebody says something, but you're like, did you even listen to what I said? You were so quick to tell me why you couldn't, but did you just listen for a minute to what I said? And it's, it really is. It's almost easier to live in your stories, because on the flip side, if you choose to commit, you actually have to put some work in it. But here's the kicker. You're already putting the work in. You're just not putting the work in to give you the outcome that you're looking for. And that's the craziest shit for me ever. Is like, there's so many times in my life where I'll be like, I'm overwhelmed. I don't want to do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And then I tell myself, like, Danielle, you're already doing the work. It's literally ineffective work. So why don't you change your story and commit to an outcome? It might be uncomfortable, because you're comfortable in this land and you might have to be uncomfortable. But either way, like, you really have, like, I always tell people, I'm like, look at what your goal is. Look at what the outcome is that you're looking at, and then reverse engineer. Like, how do you get there? Because there's like steps in between that we're like, oh, I don't want to do that, but I want to do this. Well, I don't want to do that when I do this. And you're like, well, then then you need to be realistic with your goal you're setting.
Yeah.
You know?
And willing to put in the work. Which I think you're willing to put in the work if you're actually committed.
Yes. Starts with commitment.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe you should ask yourself, if you're not getting the results that you want, are you truly committed to what you say you're committed to? Because,
Right? It's like a big aha.
I mean, it kind of is. Like, I'm just trying to think right now, like, wait, what are the things that I say that I want that are not happening? And oh my God, is this just a story in my head? Which it probably is.
I shared this story on one of my social media posts this week, because I feel like we get obsessed with hair. We go to school, we get really good at it, and then we don't want to like learn other things. We're like, I'm good, I'm done. Like, I've got this. And it's so funny, because I always share the story of, like, I went into hair school because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I got married young and I was like, I need a trade or a skill or whatever. And I got into hair school and I'm like, oh, I really like this. But I didn't really get obsessed with it until I felt like I was like really started to get proud of my transformations, right?
So in beauty school, or was it after?
It was probably after in beauty school. I was just like, I don't want to fry anyone's hair off. Like, I don't remember I remember like early on, like, it's like you start to see progression in your art, and it makes you want to keep getting better, right?
Yeah, the first time you cut someone's hair in beauty school and you don't fuck it up,
you're like, oh. But then you go back and look at the haircut that you did 6 months ago, and you're like, oh. And you can, because you've grown, you can see like where it wasn't maybe up to par, right?
Yeah.
It's not bad, but you're like, wow, I was so proud of that color. And now when I go back and look at it, I'm like, that color was not the best. You know what I mean? And that's what's so crazy, is that as you become an expert in your craft and you start to see progression, that's when you really get obsessed. Like, artists are truly obsessed with their work. Like, they're the weirdest fucking humans on the planet. Like,
in a good way,
in a good way. Like, I also am an artist.
We're very weird.
We're all very weird. We're all very aware of it. But it's because, like, we start to get this obsession, right? And in this obsession then turns into like a passion. But what artists are guilty of is then they kind of like burn out because they're not very business savvy, or they're not charging their worth, or whatever it is. So they get really obsessed with like their craft, but then they kind of dismiss it because they're not willing to get uncomfortable and commit to other areas in their life to become good at, just like they did with the hair.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, remember in hair, like you were willing to feel uncomfortable, but through progress, you just kept going. Well, guess what? That's what you're going to have to feel with your marketing. That's how you're going to have to work with your teams. That's how you're going to have to deal with like your own personal branding, like whatever it is that you're struggling with. Like, you just kind of have to start, and then you'll start to get good at it. Maybe I was never a good writer. Like, that was one of my things. I was like, I'm a shitty writer. Like, I can't communicate a message because my brain's always all over the place. And then as I started to write, I was like, oh, it helped me organize my thoughts better. And now I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm like an amazing writer, but I'm like, oh, I'm not too bad. Like, but it was because I just I wanted to be willing to do it. I just was just like, I gotta try. And now I'm like, wow, even my writing, like little things like that, I'm like, has come a long way.
Yeah, you were committed to an outcome.
I was. I get a little crazy obsessed when I start to, I'm like, oh, that was a good post. Okay, I'm gonna keep, you know what I mean? It's like, once you have one win, it's like, celebrate that win and keep riding that momentum of like, oh, you know what I love?
Yeah. What? I'm like, I know a lot of things you love.
I've been drinking. I drank a lot of caffeine this morning.
Okay, tell me.
So little Isla, she's 3. You have a 3-year-old.
She's so cute.
And I love when like she does something that I know is kind of scary to her. So it could be like going down a big slide or doing something that I can like see in her face that she's so nervous.
Oh, like dropping her off at preschool last Wednesday?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
But like little things. And then, but this is what I love. She'll do something and then she'll be like, she gets this like these big eyes and she'll be like, I did it. And you can tell she's like, I'm the queen of the world. Like you can tell she's so pumped and she's like, it was like she was uncomfortable and she accomplished it. And then she's like so proud of herself. And I'm like, how come as adults we forget to celebrate like those uncomfortable moments that like lead us to success?
I don't know.
Right? We're uncomfortable. And then I was like, I loved just watching my little 3-year-old celebrate like going down a slide and not falling on her face.
I mean, I think when it comes to celebrating success, I think that a lot of people could probably agree it's this fear of coming across as being a braggosaurus or someone who, is, really big on their ego or what are people going to say, or whatnot. And when it comes to, I'm just thinking about like my own mindset prior to learning anything NBR or BMS, like when it came to realizing the things that were lacking in my business, like I didn't know what to look at. And B, I was terrified to look at anything. Like if you were like, oh, tell me the state of your business. Like, what are your financials? I would have been like, oh, well, like I have all these tip envelopes with a bunch of cash in them and I'm going to go shopping. Like that was my level of comfort. And taking it further into that just felt like so much exposure because of a lack of knowledge. So, I mean, honestly, like I was interested in NBR. I thought you were a scam for a long time. I was like, there's no way all these beautiful people can have these transformations. But it was really the business marketing and sales training that got me to commit and that got me to purchase because I knew that I knew nothing. I hadn't even scratched the surface. And I'd been doing hair for probably 14 years at that time. And I just knew that I wasn't going to go any further unless I actually leveled up my mindset.
Right. Yeah, I feel like that's like my big thing is like I had to go through so many, I call it the dark years, where I had to just like really kind of shift my mindset. And there was a lot of things like I didn't know how to do with business. Like I was like, who do you think you are? And it was like, I kind of got to this place where I'm like, I had to kind of submit and just be like, no, like I have to figure this out. I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And in those moments, it kind of like humbled me, but I kind of got to this place where I'm like, okay, just live with where you're at, but strive for growth, right? Like you don't have to know how to do it all, but you have to be willing to commit and start.
Yeah.
You just do. And I think that's where women or artists or anybody gets in their head is they're like, they want a roadmap. And I'm like, why don't you believe in yourself enough just to commit? You'll figure it out along the way.
They don't like just want a roadmap. They want detailed instructions, including photos of the signage and where am I turning left and what does the intersection look like. But wait, I don't know if my car can turn left there, Danielle, because my blinker
They're already giving you a line of excuses.
And you're like, you haven't even gotten the car yet.
Yeah.
Your car's already exploded in your mind. Like don't go there. Don't think, just do.
Yeah. And it's true. Once you get to this place where you're like, I don't have a choice, like you really will figure it out along the way. Like every left and right I've made, I'm like, I know if I go, I will have to course correct along the way, but I will figure it out. Like I just will. And a lot of times it's like, oh, I thought I needed to go here, but really I needed to go here. And that's not actually as scary as I thought it was going to be. You know what I mean?
I 100% know what you mean.
And it's funny. I always share this story too, where I was teaching a class one time and this girl was like, okay, so I've been looking at this salon. I think I'm going to purchase it. She told me like the square footage. She told me like the whole blueprint, right? And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, so I'm like thinking like you must have like a full book of MBR and like several assistants. And so I'm like, awesome, that's so cool. So how many assistants do you currently have? Oh, I don't have an assistant. You don't have an assistant? No. How many MBR clients do you currently have? Oh, I have like 3. I'm like, okay, all right, let's solve problems for where we're at. I love your vision. I love your vision. But you're going to crash and burn if you can't start with where you're at. Like truly, like I said, your first goal, I love that. Like keep that, like that's your, now you need to reverse engineer that goal, which means in order to get to that salon space and that salon like owner, you first need to start with possibly just hiring an assistant.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so
Step 1.
what does that look like? And she's like, well, yeah, I mean, and I'm like, no, like that's where you need to start. Like, I'm like, you can't reach this goal if you don't start with where you're at right now. And then you'll start to hit these milestones where I always say you start hitting these singles, all of a sudden turn into home runs. And all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, look how far I've come. Yeah. But your growth is really determined on how quickly you kind of submit to the process and are open to seeing more and pivoting when you need to.
And building that like strong foundation. Because if you just go and you buy the salon before you've even gone to beauty school, like the salon is not like you're going to end up failing. Yeah. But if you take it one step at a time and build that strong foundation, you get the education, you get the assistant, like you understand your business, you understand your numbers, you create a business plan. Like if you go for the natural flow, you will be successful.
So in the beginning, when I started my brand, I was only teaching MBR. I wasn't teaching business marketing and sales because I wasn't a salon owner. Mm-hmm. And I felt like for the progression of my education, I needed to become a salon owner. I had no idea how to be a salon owner. I was really good at hair. I was pretty decent at marketing, and I was pretty decent at teaching and selling. And that's where I was at. But I was like, I have to become a salon owner. And I learned the hard way. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna be commission and booth rent. That seems to make sense because I need to fill my chairs, right? And then I was like, okay, well that didn't work. So then I'm like, okay, I think I need to be booth rent. And then I was like, okay, well that's not making me any money. So then I'm like, hey, I think I need to switch to commission. And I'm always looking at for like what's going to benefit the business. Why open a salon or be a business owner if you're just doing it for other people? You're like, I want a beautiful environment to you to work at. No, you don't. You want to make some fucking money. Right. And so I constantly was like, well, that's not working. I can't do that. So then I switched to going commission, right? And I try to paint the vision and get my salon to follow me. And I spent like 3 to 4 years building up my salon team. My business was booming. And then you know what happened? Yeah. I had a salon walkout. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And I was like, well, that's not going to work. And I had to rebuild my teams and I had to rebuild my clientele because half my clientele got taken. Like, it's so crazy. So even in me committing, I had to be like, I had to figure it out as I was going. Yeah. Right? And I had to create systems. I had to create processes. I had to build up a new team. Like there was so much that if you would have told me, like, Danielle, the first 3 years of this, it's gonna be a shit show. You're gonna have assistants come and go. I've been like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that, you know? But then now I'm like, oh, I figured it out. So now I know even in hiring, like how I'm going to hire them. They're very clear with the pay outcome. Like it's just like you learn as you go. Oh, I need contracts. That's so crazy, right? Yeah. So all of these things I wouldn't have been able to figure out if I hadn't I've done that. And now I'm like, okay, I've got it pretty like dialed in. And now it's like, okay, I don't want other artists to go through the shit show that I went through. And that's truly why the Academy was created. It was like to kind of help like not have artists that are like, no, I got this on my own. I'm like, but do you? Have you ever been a salon owner? No, but I'm really good at hair and I've been doing hair for 20 years. It's like you can almost see like the fire before it starts. You're like, okay.
Well, and then it's like, do they really want to be a salon owner?
True.
Or do they just feel like they need to because they've been doing hair for 20 years?
I see that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's probably really common.
Yeah. In fact, I would say because I've actually worked in 4 different states and probably 13 different salons in my career. Mm-hmm. And every salon that I worked at, like the owners, they only make money if they are behind the chair and they are hustling their ass off. And I'm like, why? And I've had a few salons even go out of business. They're like, this isn't worth it anymore. I can go rent a chair and have half the stress and make the same amount of money.
Well, and I think that that's something really interesting to touch on because you can not be a salon owner and a full-time stylist and be successful.
Right.
If you have to commit to a path, because what Danielle was explaining with her past is simply summed up like this. If the business is not successful, then the business does not exist. Mm-hmm. So the people who work inside of the business, regardless of whether they're commission or they're 1099, regardless of how they're paid, if the business does not exist, where are they supposed to work?
Right.
So for what is the greater good of the company? What is the greater good for the artists working inside of it? And how does this effectively and efficiently create more opportunities for growth and more opportunities for impact? And if you can answer those questions, yes and yes, or it does this in these ways, then you know you're set for success.
I like that.
It's so true, though.
Yeah, for
sure. Because
sure.
it's like, and as a stylist yourself and as a business owner, like, okay, well, if I'm just a stylist and I'm working behind the chair and I'm making X amount of dollars, maybe the business is doing great, but I'm not making enough money. My life is going to suffer in the following ways. That doesn't work.
Right.
Okay, well, now if I'm making this much money and the business is literally like spitting money out and is in the red, that's also not going to work.
Right.
So what is the entire picture?
I think the artists are kind of guilty of that, where it's like, I just feel like they're not, like, it's like, I always think of like shoving cash under the mattress for some reason.
Yeah.
We're like, we love what we do so much that we're like, no, I made so much money. And then you go look at your bank account and you're like, it's fine. It'll get better next month. I'll just keep ignoring this gaping wound.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'll just ignore it. And that's like one of the things too that we teach inside the academy is like, you have to know your numbers. Like, you have to know your numbers. Like, yes, you need to go all in, but it's also like you need to be smart, right? You need to be smart about the moves that you're making. There's a series of things that you have to do to have success. And yes, our whole topic is commit. Like, that's truly where you have to start, is just committing. But make sure that you're educating yourself along the way. You know what I mean? So that you're, again, achieving, you're not just running on the hamster wheel, you're working towards a goal efficiently and on purpose.
Yeah. And I also think it's very important for all of you stylists out there to know your real numbers, not the numbers that you tell TurboTax or anyone else.
It's like being a liar to your trainer.
And if you're lying to yourself about your numbers, we know you're lying to everybody else. So I'm just going to...
That is so true. I was thinking about it. I'm like, we lie to people, but really we're just lying to ourselves because we don't want to face the truth. But if you can't face the truth, you're not going to have your success or progression.
You're just going to stay stagnant.
You're just going to live in your stories and tell yourself like, no, I'm being honest. Like, ask yourself, I'm going to leave you guys with a final thought for this podcast. Ask yourself, what areas in your life are you being dishonest with yourself?
So good.
So good. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave you guys with that thought. What areas in your life are you being dishonest with yourself? And my other thought is, where are areas that you are lacking commitment to actually achieve the outcome that you're looking for?
And I was busy actively listening to Danielle on that. So all I have to say is, have a great week, and we will see you next week.
I'm actually going to add one more thing. If you guys are interested in our education, we actually closed down events for the year. Woohoo! Actually, not really. We did last night, for reals. We did. We normally all year we've been selling a 2-day virtual experience where you learn a little bit of the business marketing and sales taught inside my academy, mixed with natural beauty row hair extensions. So those events are done for the year. We're focusing all of our energy the rest of this year on the academy. The academy is a 12-month program designed specifically for artists. We do have open enrollment.
We do.
So if you're like, man, these guys are crazy and they are my vibe, I want to see what the academy is about, you want to go to
NBR.education. However, I do want to say this, which we've ended the show 3 times now, so we're just going to keep going. So for those of you who don't know what open enrollment is, originally, when education came through NBR, and it was BMS and Mastermind at the time, the only way that you could join our education was through a class.
Right.
So open enrollment really just gives artists everywhere the ability to apply for the academy, to learn the tools of NBR and BMS, and really, like, we have created the path. We have the guide to show you how to explode your income in a good way.
And we actually have we have about almost 500 students inside the program right now, right?
Yeah, like 450 students, and then plus our licensed artists and affiliates.
Right. So if you haven't heard of NBR, or you've heard of NBR, really we're putting a lot of emphasis on the academy because we know it works. We are creating a small army of hairstylists, and I genuinely believe that we are starting to make waves in our industry. So again, if you're like, these guys are crazy, they're totally my vibe, go to nbr.education, and don't forget to share this podcast with one of your stylist buddies. All right, you guys, we'll see you next week, next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
All right, bye.